So as some of you may know, I blew the hardline oil feed for my turbo. That was quite the mess. I made another one and I'm running it and it's okay, but I decided that I actually want to do what I probably should have done from the beginning and just make a nice Dash 4 feed with a braided stainless steel flex hose and some nice Dash 4 end fittings. First thing I'm going to do is tape a little bit of wood to the jaws of my vise to prevent marring when I'm installing the fittings on the hose. It's always a good idea, you never know what kind of conditions these are cut under at the origin, so I'm just going to rinse them out a little bit, and then there's a little bit of junk inside the ends from cutting them, so I'm going to clear out that junk before I use this as well. I don't know if you can see the chunks in there or not, but I'm just picking them out. Next thing I'm going to do is install this piece of the fitting onto the end of the hose. Some guys leave the tape. I prefer not to if I don't have to. Alright, so after a struggle, I've now got the fitting on the hose and it sits flush up against the backstop there. Now what I'm going to do is take some needle nose pliers that are rounded on the ends, and then I'm just going to soften up the very tip of the hose just to make it a little easier for my 90-degree fitting to go inside. So I'm just pushing them in there and then just spreading the handles a little bit. Next thing I like to do is make a little mark to make sure that when I install the 90-degree, this doesn't slip up. It needs to stay where it is for it to be effective. Now I'm going to take just a little bit of Vaseline, not too much, and I'm just going to put it around the cone here that slides into the hose, and then I'm going to tighten this fitting down. So this one's actually going together fairly easily, but one thing I need to make sure of is that I'm tightening it by this nut, not by twisting this, because I'll break this little 90-degree. So there's one end of the hose done, and I'm double checking my work by looking at the little mark that I made there with blue Sharpie to make sure that this part didn't slide that way. So that means that this fitting is good, and obviously I probably got some crud in here from twisting and scraping and stuff like that. So once I'm completely done and I have the other end cut and everything and fitted, then I'll rinse it one more time by flushing it out there. Now what I'm going to do is go ahead and remove the new hard line that I made in the prior video there. So there's the old hard line removed. Now what I'm going to do is take the end that I just made, install it over here, and then I'll make a nice lazy bend. So I'm going to go ahead and mark my length now. The first step is to get the hose directly centered over the turbo's feed fitting, and then I'm going to make a dot right there. Now the most streamlined way that I really know how to do this is I'm going to take my fitting and I'm going to take a measurement. The way that I'm going to take this measurement is I'm going to imagine a line that perfectly divides this end of the fitting in the center, because that's how it will align on the turbo feed. Now I'm going to take that imaginary line and measure the distance from it to the very end of these threads right here, right there. That measurement appears to be in the neighborhood of 42 millimeters. So now what I'm going to be doing, I'm going to take my mark and measure about 42 millimeters this direction, give or take, just in that general vicinity, and then I'm going to wrap it very tightly with electrical tape. Now I'm going to take, again, my original reference mark and measure from that 42 millimeters back onto the black tape. And also need to make sure that my hose is nice and straight, so I'm getting an accurate measurement. The next thing I'm going to do is use another tape to really highlight where that line is that I'm cutting. Now that I've got it cut to length, the next thing that I'm going to do is try and get this oriented the way that I need it. So I'm going to install the end that's already cut. And now what I did is I took the hose side fitting and I tightened it onto the 90-degree fitting, and that's going to tell me if I set it like this, and I want it to feed the turbo pretty much just like that. So what I'm going to do is make an index mark here and an index mark here. This way, when I install the end fitting on the hose, it'll be aligned and not wonky, which would cause me to need to twist this, which puts undue strain on stuff. Now I'm going to install this onto the hose. Got my reference mark there, hopefully it works. Now I'm just going to spread the opening with the needle nose a little bit. And I need my mark along the bottom to make sure that it doesn't slip. Well, that looks pretty decent. Now I'm going to go install it and see how it looks. Real quick before I install it, I'm just going to blast it out with compressed air so I have nice clean oil feeding the turbo and it's not picking up any metal shavings or anything. Now I have hopefully a much more reliable oil feed for the turbo. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe.